Folks, hello and very good morning, good afternoon, and indeed a good evening, depending on what time you're tuning in, listening and watching. Delighted to have you with us this morning for a really interesting session on a topic that we have been running last week. As a starting point for July, and we're going to be continuing on over the course of the rest of the month. I am delighted to be joined by one of my colleagues and one of the team, Ethan Boon, and Ethan's going to be helping you really understand from a recruiter's perspective the I guess the candidate experience, you know, and more importantly, what is it that a recruiter looks for and wants to see when you are applying with a CV. Our topic for today and for this morning is how to write a winning CV. And I think it's really interesting, actually, in 2021, you know, lots has changed. Lots of things have changed, and lots of things have changed in terms of what employers, hiring managers, and indeed recruiters are looking for, or indeed not looking for, in a CV. So Ethan, great to have you with us this morning. How's things?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks very much for having me again.
Delighted to have you. So the other stuff that you're seeing, folks, on screen there are the topics. Well, number one, that we did last week and that we covered, and obviously you're able to access that. You're able to access that through our YouTube channel, and indeed, really importantly, the topics and sessions that we have that we've got planned for the next 2 weeks, and some really interesting, high value, high impact sessions there. Let's get into the detail. And by the way, for those of you who don't know me or Ethan or indeed Ingenio, we have two businesses that operate very specifically and exclusively in the tech, SaaS, and software space. We have a recruitment business, which is the part of the business that Ethan works in. And we also have an e-learning business, which is where we help people like you get hired by tech, SaaS, and software organizations. We've built an online course, and indeed we sell an online course and some services around that help people really understand, you know, what it takes in the current market to go and get hired by some of the most amazing organizations in the world. We wanted to talk about, the topic today is all around writing that winning CV. Okay, so look, maybe you're in a situation where, you know, you've not done a CV or you've not updated your CV in ages. Perhaps you're in a situation where, you know, you're right in the middle of you know, maybe an application process or getting your CV done up to date. Or indeed, perhaps you're in a situation where maybe you've been well through a process in terms of applications, and you've been working on a CV and banging that out, and maybe not having a huge amount of success, right? So I think what this is a little bit of I want you to think about this as a reset and a refresher. And what we're going to do is, Ethan and I are going to talk to you about what we believe to be the four most important parts of a CV and four most important sections of your CV, and the pieces that you need to get absolutely right. So I'm going to start off here, okay? We're going to start off with your profile. And I talk, for those of you who know me and know our content, and really importantly, for those of you maybe who don't know the details and the construct of our course, I talk loads about your shop window, and it's really important that you pigeonhole yourself, or that you box yourself into being an individual with a very particular set of skills and a very particular set of experiences that relate to the one job that you want to go and do, and that one job that you're applying for. So look, if you're a project manager, be a project manager. If you're a business analyst, be a business analyst. If you're a Python software developer, you need to be a Python software developer and not lots of other things. So it's really, really important because really importantly, hiring managers hire for one job title, one set of experiences, and that's really, really important. So look, when you're working on your profile, and we're going to go through some examples of this later on, you need to obsess about the fact that you are a pure breed, very specific, focused individual who is, who carries a job title, and that job title has the appropriate level of experience, of attributes, of interests, or whatever the case may be. And it's really, really importantly that your profile absolutely screams that you are the individual that the hiring manager or the recruiter or the individual in HR is absolutely looking for. So we're going to come on to maybe some experiences on that one in a short while, but really, really importantly, that profile piece needs to be really succinct, really sharp, and it absolutely needs to scream exactly who you are, what you do, and importantly, what you're going to go and do. Ethan, do you want to take the next one from a work experience perspective?
Yeah, of course. I think with work experience, it's really important here, guys, that you focus on a few different points, really. And the first one being to focus on, with the format of your CV, focusing on the actual most relevant or most recent work experience being on the top. Sometimes what we find is people actually put a lot of other information or they work backwards, but really when an employer is looking, they want to see what you're doing last. They want to see, right, I work in SaaS sales, so I want to see, is he selling a software solution? Where is he selling it? And what process are they going through? They want that right in front of them. We want to make a CV as easy as possible for the employer. What we want to do is essentially take any elements of difficulty out of this. We want this to be as simple as possible. So that's the first point. I think also something that we see people kind of almost let themselves down with a little bit, but if you want to stand out, you can actually, when you work for a business that's not as well known as, for example, Google or one of these businesses, have a little snippet in there. Explain who you are. If I'm working with a business, if you're working with a business and this isn't, maybe it's a startup, maybe it's someone that nobody else knows about right now. And if I'm looking at a CV and I say, right, yeah, it seems relevant, but I've got 3 people at businesses I know what they're doing. Again, we want to make this as simple as possible. So it saves the people actually having to do a Google search. And as silly as that sounds, when you're looking at that many CVs, you're going to pick what you recognize as being the top businesses. So if you've got a snippet in there with, I work with a SaaS solution that offers certain elements that this business work with as well, that's going to stand out. And nobody else is really doing this. So you're going to stand out with that. And I think as well, what you really need to do, and I spoke about this last week, is personalization. You want to, and Rob's touched on it there as well, you want to make sure in this work experience, you're making it as relevant as possible to the role you're applying for. No work experience should be over 5 to 8 bullet points. I think if you put it into a big long essay, you're going to have information lost there, and it takes away from the effect. What you want is 5 to 8 short, snappy bullet points, relevant work, what your targets were. If it was in sales, like I am, if you're in development or something like that, put in with projects you're working on, and just have it really, really relevant to that role you're applying for.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm going to, Ethan, I'm going to kind of follow your train of thought there, and talk a little bit about the next point, which is for me, is probably it's probably the area that most people really fall down on or in, when they put together a CV, which is it's actually talking about what they physically do in their job, but more importantly, what are the outcomes, the impact, the output, the deliverables of what it is that you do in your job. And I guess if you think about it, everything I'm talking about here relates back to a business initiative or a business imperative or a business drive or a business goal. And I think what we often do, and we often see in recruitment, is people maybe sometimes losing, I guess, losing or missing the point around what it is that their role actually does. You know, are they responsible for driving revenue? You know, are they responsible for reducing costs? Are they responsible for, you know, improving a customer experience or an efficiency? Are they responsible for, you know, so something that revolves around a commercial organization making or saving money? Okay, and ultimately, if you think about, you know, if you think about what the drivers of a business are, like it's going to be around one or two of those, one or two or both, indeed both of those kind of initiatives. And it's really, really important that you're able to connect the role, the job that you've done maybe previously, you know, whether that's an internship or whether that's a proper, you know, a proper paid for a full-time employed job. But it's really important that you're able to connect that, what you have done, to some of those outcomes. And look, you know, if you think about it, like I always, you know, I always think it's very, very easy, and Ethan works in the sales side of things. It's always very easy for sales guys to be able to talk about what they have delivered, you know, from a sales perspective, from a quota target perspective. But actually, it's really, really easy for people in every other part of the business to be able to talk about their involvement and their contribution to an impact or an outcome. And that can be fiscal or financial. It can be around cost reduction. It can be around business efficiency improvement. It could be around improving the customer experience. And ultimately, you know, if you think about what your old boss or what your previous boss was goaled or targeted on, they're effectively the same kind of goals and targets that you'll have had. So it's really, really, really important to you know, you need to challenge yourself on your CV. You've got to have outputs, outcomes, deliverables, and specifically what the impact that you've had on the business, or what impact you've had in terms of your job or your role or your team or whatever the case may be. And that needs to be right up, as Ethan has said, it needs to be right up at the very top of those 5 to 8 bullet points that he's mentioned in terms of your work experience. Absolutely crucial. Ethan, I know this next one's a really interesting, or sorry, not an interesting one. It's a real personal one for you, right? Interests and hobbies.
Yeah, 100%. I always recommend, when I get a CV, the first thing I'll speak to people about is, if they don't have them down, interests and hobbies. Put it in there. You need to have this in here. And I'm going to give you an example of why you need to do this. So I was recently recruiting for an SDR role in London, and I had a guy who didn't have any industry experience. He was looking to get into sales, and he put down in his interests and hobbies that he is an avid guitar player and guitar collector. He had 2 of the different guitars. Now, I don't know my guitars, so I'm not going to be able to tell you which ones they are.
Sorry, I can't help you there.
Yeah. So he had them down as had these in his collection, which I thought, like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I spoke to the client anyway about him, and first thing the client said, it wasn't anything to do with his experience. He was like, oh, he likes these electric guitars. Oh, I've always wanted one of these ones. And I was like, all right, okay. And he was like, yeah, set up a call. And funny enough, the guy was doing the first stage interview in his room, and in the background, he had the guitar just there behind him. And the first 5 to 10 minutes of this interview was talking about this guitar. And what that's done, guys, I'm just going to say straight away, that's what got him the interview, what got him in the door. All you need is to get in the door. It's such a great icebreaker to have. You something then relatable to have a quick chat about. And it really breaks the tension of an interview. An interview can be such a high pressure environment for you, especially when you're applying for kind of your first few roles, or when you haven't interviewed for a while. And to have something in common with someone, it really takes the pressure away. And all of that was just because he had an interest in hobbies down in his profile.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I think people are very guilty of putting, you know, walking or reading or going to the movies or eating out with your friends, like, you know, traveling, right? I think these are clearly interests and hobbies that people have, right? But I guess what I would be saying to you there, Ethan, it's like, are you absolutely passionate about those things in the same way that your guy was absolutely passionate about guitars, right? And And it's that level of passion, right? It kind of almost doesn't matter what it is, but it's to show off your uniqueness, your key interesting attributes, or whatever the case may be, and then to be able to provide a kind of a topic that is a little different. I think that's really the key thing here, right?
Yeah, 100%. I always say the more obscure the hobby is, the better, because it's going to start a conversation. If you have somebody with something ridiculous down there, you know the first thing they're going to say is, Rob, is this serious? Do you actually go diving with sharks every 3 weeks?
Yeah.
And it's just an absolute great icebreaker.
Yeah. Icebreaker. Love it. Okay, cool. So Ethan, thanks for that. That's really, really interesting. And I think very, very important. Folks, I think just moving on to Q&A, and I think there's some really interesting things there coming through, on the chat. And by the way, keep them coming through. We have built a course that we're very proud of, and indeed I guess our students are very, very happy, very, very, very happily kind of succeeding and being successful through. There's a great stat there: 90% of our students get hired within 90 days. These are some of our previous students, and again, I think what's really interesting there is that these guys have got hired. Sorry, I've got dogs going mental in the background, so hopefully you're not picking up too much on that. But these students come from a completely wide range of backgrounds and interests and experience levels. And I think that's really, really important for you when you're considering, what do I need to go and do, and what are the next steps that I need to go and take? And really importantly, these are the types of organizations that we help people get hired in. Whether they are some gargantuan technology organizations, a couple of financial institutions, and indeed some smaller organizations out there that perhaps maybe aren't those household names that Ethan has mentioned earlier on. So I think that's really, really important. And again, postman coming to the door here and absolutely killing me mid-webinar. But really, really importantly, this is very, very relevant to you in terms of what it is that you want to go and get hired by. Our offer to you guys in terms of people who are tuned in live today is a promotional discount off our course. And that I really want to try and get focused in on is, what does 30 euros look and feel and sound like to you in terms of your job, your role, your career, and everything else? Okay. Again, these dogs are going completely mental here, so apologies if you are picking up on that. Ethan, I hope it's not too excessive.
Well, they got excited when you started talking about the course. That's what it was.
There you go. Folks, we also have a one-to-one offer. We also have a dedicated one-to-one offer that is set up specifically for people who are looking to maybe do some one-on-one individual unique prep around some career coaching. If you've got an interview upcoming, perhaps lacking in confidence.